Oh, good morning. Good morning, everybody. It is my great pleasure to welcome you today to today's webinar hosted by the Jobs Fund titled From Surviving to Thriving, How Financial Independence Heals and Empowers Women. I'm Najwa Ali Idris and I'm responsible for the Jobs Fund. Today's conversation is both timely and deeply important. Gender-based violence remains one of the most pressing and social challenges in South Africa, affecting millions of women and girls across the country. While the physical and emotional impacts of GBV are widely acknowledged, the economic dimension is often overlooked. Financial dependence is a powerful tool used by abusers to entrap and control. And so, financial independence becomes not just a pathway to empowerment, but a lifeline. This webinar explores how economic empowerment can be a transformative force in the lives of survivors. We are proud to spotlight the work of Sparrow Society, a Jobs Fund partner whose trauma-informed community-based interventions are helping women move from aid to trade, from surviving to thriving. Through initiatives like Power Pads and the So Boss program, Sparrow Society is creating safe, dignified income opportunities for survivors of GBV and human trafficking, while also addressing menstrual health, youth unemployment, and gender awareness in schools. The holistic model, combining skills development, psychosocial care, and enterprise support, is a powerful example of what inclusive, sustainable empowerment looks like. We'll hear from inspiring speakers today, including program leaders, social workers, youth coordinators, and survivors themselves. These stories remind us that when women are given the tools to rebuild their lives, they don't just survive, they rise, lead, and uplift others. Thank you for joining us. I look forward to a rich and meaningful discussion. Today's session is going to be facilitated by Zaid Motola, a legal specialist within our legal unit at the Jobs Fund. I think that what is required of me is also to say how we're going to be managing the session. All participants would be placed on mute. This is to allow the presenters to go through the presentations. You are invited to post your questions in the chat, and there is a team who will try to respond to you. At the same time, at the end of the presentations, we will unmute and give you an opportunity to then ask your questions directly of the speakers. The presentation will be posted on the Jobs Fund website, and it will be made available at the end of the session. So let's extend a warm welcome to our presenters this morning. Handing over to you now, Zaid. Thank you. Test your mic, Zaid.
Let's try that again. So the conversation that we're going to have this morning will leave you speechless, just like I was left speechless just a moment ago. So let's try that again. Take two. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zaid Motala. It is my privilege and my pleasure to be your facilitator this morning. I want to start out by saying that you are going to see a few things happening over the next little while. You are going to see incredible tales of hope and perseverance. You are going to hear about the power of personal development, and you are going to experience some feelings that may make you feel a little bit uncomfortable, But what it will do is it will help you to open your heart, open your mind, and connect with the learnings that are going to happen here. So if there's something that moves you, I invite you to use those react buttons. I want to see emojis. I want to see hearts. I want to see applause. In fact, if you are serious about changing South Africa, about making South Africa better, let's see some heart emojis right now. Let's see who's in the room with me. I'm seeing them coming. I'm seeing them coming. Very, very good. Very, very good. If you believe that women are the past, the present, the future, then I want to see some applause happening right now. I want to see that happening right now in the vibe. Yes, I do. I see it happening over here. Excellent, excellent, excellent. And if you are ready to take this journey with me, if you are ready to meet our incredible presenters and learn a little bit more about us, the jobs, so I want to see some thumbs up coming right now. Let's see those thumbs up. All righty then. So now that we know everyone is here, now that we know that we are ready to rumble, let me tell you a little bit about the Jobs Fund as we kick off our conversation this morning. Let's go to the next slide. A reminder once again, as you arrive, please let us know who we're speaking to. I want you to introduce yourself in the chat, and let's get to know each other a little bit better. Now, in the spirit of getting to know each other better, let's talk about the Jobs Fund and why the Jobs Fund is absolutely a place that you need to get involved with, learn more about. So, the Jobs Fund is a program of the National Treasury, and we were established to inspire innovation and to co-fund programs that address specific barriers to job creation in South Africa. Now, we do this in a unique way by piloting, testing, and scaling innovative models that do exactly that. And that, I think, is the great joy of my life, because not only do we get to go into spaces that nobody else will or can, but what we get to do is partner with what we call intermediaries to leverage their resources, to leverage their networks, to ultimately have a bigger impact in South Africa. And ultimately, that's something that we're able to scale. Because like I said earlier, that's the way we change South Africa, and that's how we're going to make this world a much better place. Now, we operate on what are called challenge fund principles, and you see the green writing there, and I want you to internalize some of this. So what the challenge fund principles allow us to do is to test innovative approaches to job creation, and that allows us to intervene on both the supply and the demand side of the labor market. It's a unique approach. What it does is it helps us to share risk by catalyzing social return, and it also encourages wider market adoption of the challenge funding principles over the medium to long terms, because we genuinely believe that if we can teach people how to do this and do it better, everyone benefits in the long run. Lastly, we encourage the adoption of successful job creation models by organizations. So remember when I was talking to you about pilot testing and scaling? Well, when we do that, we learn more about how to do the right things, the right time, the right way, and at the right price point, and ultimately that de-risks it for everyone else to do slightly better in that space. Now, all of that is to say that the Jobs Fund is unique in its approach to job creation. And in understanding what the Jobs Fund is, it's equally important that you understand what the Jobs Fund is not. And in this context, I'd like to remind everyone that the Jobs Fund is not a mass employment program, but rather what it does is, or what we do is, we complement other government programs by encouraging innovation and, of course, sustainable job creation. I mentioned before that our fund works with intermediaries, very much like our friends from Sparrow Society, who I'm going to talk to you about in the next few minutes. And what that does is it allows us to leverage their networks and expertise to access and provide support to targeted beneficiaries. In other words, it's taking the best of what government has to offer, and then it takes the best of what our partners have to offer, it puts them together, it pools those resources, and ultimately the net effect of that is empowering beneficiaries and making them better today for a brighter tomorrow. And a little later in our conversation, you're going to get to meet some of them and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I see people joining us in the comments of there. Thank you so much. And if you're new over here, just remember that this presentation will be shared with you later, and you will have an opportunity to ask questions later in the session. Right now, though, if there's something pressing for you, I want you to put that in the chat for me. Now, as we round out over here, I want to talk to you about the last pillar of the Jobs Fund model. And that, of course, is knowledge sharing. When we were established, knowledge sharing was one of those critical pillars, basically the spine of what we do. And what we have is a rigorous monitoring, evaluation, reporting, and learning framework. The reason we do this is because our founders were of the view that, listen, It's one thing to do the things, but it's more important to understand how we did it. We did it right, so we can do it again. And equally, if not more important, is learning in such a way that you can do it better the next time. And that's what we are all about. And to do this, we have these learning sessions, these webinars. And I encourage you, once this is done, share the message far and wide, and also check us out on all of our social media to make sure that you keep up with all the amazing things that we are doing out there. Last but not least, I want to remind you that this journey we are on, the journey of changing South Africa for the better, it's a responsibility shared by all of us. So as we go through the rest of the presentation, you're going to learn some things, and I hope that will change not just your mind and your heart. Let's go to the next slide, please. Alrighty then. So, my friends, I'm going to introduce to you our speakers today before I hand over to the first one. And in order to do this, and just so it's easier with the flow, as I introduce them, you will see them pop up on your screen. And after that, I'm going to hand over. So let's start out with my first sister from another mister. Her name is Mehlali Manikivana, my apologies. Getting nervous just talking about this great person. She is a youth engagement coordinator with our friends at Sparrow Society. Next up is Candace Kluter. She is a social auxiliary worker. Yes, let's see those applause coming over there. Let's give them some encouragement. I want to introduce you to Kate Brim, the managing director, who is also going to be our first speaker. They're coming up in a minute or so. And last but certainly not least, we have Michaela Ford, who is the program head for the specific jobs fund intervention. Now, my friends, before I hand over to Kate, I've got to be honest about this. When we first learned about Sparrow Society, when we first learned about their mission, it floored me to think that I live in the same time in this great plane of existence as these incredible speakers. I get to be a part of this heartwarming mission, and I get to be a part of the greatness that they impart in this world. And you will get to do exactly that in this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm Jobs Fund welcome to our first speaker this morning. Her name is Kate Brim. She is the director for Sparrow Society. Kate, over to you. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. It's so great to be with you this morning. Thank you to Jobs Fund for the opportunity to bring some light and hopefully a bit more understanding to this issue. And thank you, Najwa and Zaid, for the introductions. That was really nice. You were very, very kind. As Zaid said, I am Kate, the founder and managing director of Sparrow Society. Can you go ahead and go to the next slide? Yeah, there we go. Great. So Sparrow Society is a nonprofit organization that has been working in the job creation space in Cape Town for well over a decade. When Sparrow Society started, it focused more broadly on economic empowerment through skills development and job creation, most specifically. Our main stream of revenue throughout that whole time has been manufacturing of custom branded cosmetic bags and tote bags for global companies. We've made over 1 million products, almost 1.5, we're almost there. These have been shipped and sold all over the world. Some of our clients include Elizabeth Arden, Revlon, Woolworths, Dermalogica, a whole host of local hotels, brands, and conferences, and we are so grateful for their continued support with us, along with Jobs Fund. Along this journey, it became very clear how important our job creation programs were to the women, most specifically, that we were working with, particularly those who were currently living in an abusive situation or had recently gotten themselves out. At the same time, I was dealing with my own abuse at home, and so work kind of became our default safe space. And our mission to use economic empowerment as a tool for women to protect themselves was magnified exponentially. So today, Sparrow Society's core focus is advancing gender equity by empowering women, creating economic opportunity, and offering strategic support for survivors of gender-based violence in the process. We now go beyond just job creation and have created programs that are specifically designed with a trauma-informed approach, allowing for individualized personal development plans with in-house social workers. We have a dedicated support team and a self-paced structure. This allows each survivor the opportunity to literally work her way to freedom, and she gets to do that alongside other women who are on the same journey. So before I hand over to my team to go into the specifics of the programs, I want to open us up with a high-level overview of the link between economic power and gender-based violence, just so we all have an understanding of the starting point for the conversation. So if you can please go to the next slide. Okay, so we're just going to go over some brief stats. I'm not going to read them all, but just an overview of gender-based violence. South Africa's National Strategic Plan on GBV and Femicide defines GBV as violence directed at an individual based on their biological sex, gender identity, or sexual orientation, recognizing it as both a human rights violation and a form of discrimination. Sparrow Society focuses on women within that pool of impact due to the sheer volume of victim survivors that identify as female. And that is the demographic we found ourselves in already, as I explained previously. In South Africa, gender-based violence against women is not an isolated issue. It is a widespread crisis embedded in our society. So I've provided these stats here for reference. Feel free to take a screenshot or look at the recording later, but some important things to note is that these stats are likely very soft, as most GBV goes unreported. We can very much attest to this. Most GBV goes unreported, so it is impossible for us to know the full scale of the issue. But what we do know is that more than half of women have at some point endured GBV. And 3/4 of men admit that they have been perpetrators. Again, these are just the ones that admit, and only the ones who have reported that they have been abused. You will see that 1 in 3 women experienced physical violence during her lifetime, with nearly 1 in 10 experiencing sexual violence. So we're talking about millions of lives affected, and most of the world around them has no idea. GBV is also never just the initial experience, but that trauma is carried with them, often affecting the victim survivor's ability to work and function at what would have been their normal capacity. And this is where the importance of trauma-informed support becomes vital to her recovery journey. And that's kind of what we are going to go into today. So the impact of GBV goes well beyond the main victim survivor, impacting their families and communities as well. I think we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so now when we talk about gender-based violence, we often focus on the physical, sexual, or emotional aspects, but there is another side, the economic side. So particularly in instances of domestic violence, intimate partner violence, and human trafficking, financial insecurity is both a cause and a consequence of abuse. I want to be really clear just real quick before I go on that this doesn't really apply in cases of rape or sexual assault. But when a woman can financially sustain herself, she is significantly less prone to abuse and exploitation. So research and experience shows that financial stability can therefore be a turning point for survivors. So I don't have enough time to go into all of it, so I've kept it to some key points that particularly affect the people we work with, and then I'm going to hand over to discuss our strategies for intervention and how this all works out on a practical level. But please note that this is by no means a comprehensive overview of the issue. I have unfortunately had to leave out a whole lot, but I'm trying to keep it on topic today. One of the core damaging narratives surrounding particularly domestic abuse and intimate partner violence in particular is varying responses along the lines of, why doesn't she just leave? We hear this all the time. I'm sure everyone in this chat has heard this or had conversations around it. And while there are multiple reasons, for the purposes of staying on track again, we are going to focus on these economic motivators. So financial insecurity doesn't just make someone more vulnerable, it often becomes the chain that keeps them in an abusive relationship. And abusers know this, and many use money as a means of control. So the key message here that I want everyone to walk away with is that economic insecurity fuels abuse. And on the other side, financial independence can break this cycle. Economic dependence is one of the most powerful tools used by abusers, and one that often goes overlooked and underemphasized with regards to the harm that it causes. But financial abuse is abuse. The saying money is power is horrifyingly true in these cases. Financial independence isn't just about income, it is about power. And global research shows that financial inclusion and access to resources significantly boost women's autonomy, resilience, and safety from abuse. Gender power dynamics around economics are prevalent on a societal and systemic level, but for today and the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to keep our focus on the individual level and how that fuels domestic abuse. So in a domestic situation, the person who earns more money often has more say in how it is spent, even in households where gender power dynamic is still very strong, if a woman earns more, she feels more emboldened and empowered to speak up for herself. She has options, and it's easier for her to put money aside in secret if she needs to while making her plan to get out. Then we have financial methods of coercive control. This gets a little bit more complicated, but this can include restricting access to money, withholding bank cards, cash, paychecks, giving allowances, and demanding receipts. This happens so often. Sabotaging employment and education. We've seen this as well, preventing partner from working or studying, harassing them at the workplace, trying to get them fired. They create financial dependence. So a lot of times they will force debt in the victim's name, often without them even knowing. They control housing, transport, childcare costs, sometimes even going so far as to destroy any property she might have, or sabotaging her business partnerships or leads. And this all leads to entrapment through poverty. The survivor must then choose between safety and survival. And this keeps the victim trapped and unable to leave. So abusers know that money equals power. And by cutting off her financial independence, they make their partners dependent on them for basic survival. This is very rarely done by accident. This form of economic coercive control can be just as damaging as physical abuse. It silently traps survivors and extends the abuser's power long after the violence ends. So safety requires resources. Without financial security, freedom will remain out of reach. And that is why Jobs Fund supporting programs like this is so important for this issue. We can go to the next slide, please. So gender-based violence is a reality that far too many women face. By providing economic opportunities for women, we are restoring the power back into her hands to protect herself, provide for her family, and reach for a better future. So we've just discussed how abusers are emboldened and empowered by having financial control over their victims, and that the victims become more and more trapped as their sense of self and autonomy slowly fades away. So empowering survivors financially is a key step towards breaking that cycle of abuse. Therefore, economic empowerment aids in survivor support on all sides: prevention, intervention, and aftercare. So on the intervention level, we've kind of already hit on this, but financial options give her a way out. So many women stay because they don't see a way to provide for themselves and their children if they leave. If she isn't earning or isn't earning enough, it is often a choice between feeding and housing herself and her children or living on the streets, where she will likely face more threats of violence. So when given that impossible choice, most women will choose to stay, even if it means continuing to endure the abuse. On the side of prevention, again, this is in the case for domestic violence and intimate partner violence, and also human trafficking. But financial security reduces entrapment because she has the means to provide for herself if she wants to leave. So therefore, the abuser doesn't feel as emboldened, like they're going to be able to get away with it. It reduces vulnerability. They are less likely to enter into a relationship or take a job that they aren't fully comfortable with, or that is showing red flags from the start. Abusers often target women who are financially dependent, and this is a very big one in human trafficking. Financial power equals more bargaining power. So financially stable women are harder to isolate and control because she knows she has options. So it is important to note here that even if the abuser is served a protection order or even jailed for the abuse, as long as the abuser controls the money, the victim remains vulnerable to continued abuse and coercion. So economic independence is very much a key strategy in balancing these power dynamics. Then on the aftercare side, financial power reduces the temptation to go back to one's abuser. Unfortunately, some victim survivors find themselves tempted to return to their abusers even after they have taken the brave steps to escape. And this actually happens, unfortunately, more often than people think, because leaving is never a simple choice. Among all the other reasons, it is often a serious financial risk, and one that many survivors cannot afford to take. Without stable housing, a job, or childcare, survivors may feel that they have no option but to return to their abuser. And this is why trauma-informed aftercare support is so important. Creating other streams of support for their survival is crucial. The stability involved in financial stability and work allows women to build social networks, education, and community connections. And these are all key protective factors against GBV. It builds her confidence and it builds her community. The key message here is that safety isn't just about getting out, it's about staying out, rebuilding, and thriving, and that requires financial power. Next slide, please. So this is the exciting part. This is the power of economic empowerment. So at Sparrow Society, creating a whole network of survivors led to empowered women, drawing strength from one another and becoming change agents in their families and communities. They are now mentoring others. Our lead sewing trainer in our program is also a survivor. Many of our team leaders and people that run programs are survivors themselves. In our Power Pads program, which my team will expand on more in a bit, this group of empowered survivors are making washable sanitary pads that are being distributed to girls and menstruators experiencing period poverty across schools in South Africa. This aspect of the survivors actually helping create new futures for others not only helps break cycles in the wider community, but it breaks the cycle in her own life as her confidence and sense of worth is greatly emboldened by this opportunity to earn money doing something of such high social value. So for survivors of gender-based violence, financial empowerment can be a path to justice and healing, and that is what we're really trying to do. So money may not solve every problem. We are not here to try to say that, but it does open the door to safety, autonomy, and healing. And that is why we focus on this trauma-informed interventions and strategies for survivors of gender-based violence and human trafficking. So to truly support survivors, we must address these financial barriers head on. And that means creating trauma-informed job opportunities, offering real-time financial support, and helping survivors rebuild their lives with dignity and autonomy. So without a doubt, financial programs for survivors improve long-term outcomes and reduce return rates. Empowered women are also better able to access support services and assert their rights. Another common public response from people who don't fully understand the complexities of trauma is, why can't she then just get a job? If economics is the solution, why can't she just go out and get a job? And that is why having a trauma-informed response is so vital. Expecting a survivor of GBV or human trafficking to jump straight into a 9-to-5 job after experiencing significant trauma is not only unrealistic, it is very unkind. And the intense pressure for survivors to just be okay and get over it often does further harm to her and can cause a survivor to actually regress in her healing journey. Her confidence continues to be diminished. The outside world is full of triggers and her body is already working overtime to function. So we need job creation programs that not only understand this aspect, but also make allowances for it and create support structures for her while she is on this journey of rebuilding for herself. So what do these pathways to financial empowerment look like? This is the job training and employment programs tailored for survivors, combined with psychosocial support and community support and an understanding of trauma and recovery. So this is your roadmap. With all of that said, at Sparrow Society, we are not just in the business of creating products, even though we make a lot of them. We are in the business of creating pathways for survivors to protect and empower themselves. And making bags is just how we get there. So on that note, I'm going to hand over to our program head and team to discuss how we work out this roadmap on a more practical level through our various programs. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. This is Michaela speaking. I'm the program head. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so Sparrow Society works on an holistic approach to empowerment. So we work with a model called aid to trade. This means that we move away from short-term relief into creating long-term economic empowerment. Our interventions are built on 4 key pillars: skills development, job creation and enterprise support, psychosocial care for healing and resilience, and gender advocacy and awareness to shift mindsets in communities. Next slide, please. So one part of our program is the SOBOS network. The SOPAS network is our enterprise development model where women are supported to build independent home-based sewing businesses. Instead of a factory line with low wages, the SOPAS network prioritizes ownership, upward mobility, and sustainability. We provide training, equipment, logistics, and most importantly, ongoing access to work through our contracts with brands like Woolworths, Revlon, Dermalogica, and others, as Kate said earlier. To date, we have trained over 150 women, with more than 100 actively earning through the SOBOS network, many making between 5,000 to 20,000 Rand a month. So for us, it's not just jobs, it's the dignity of running your own business supported by a strong network. Next slide, please. So as Kate said, our survivors make reusable sanitary pads. So why did we start with the Power Pads program? One of the barriers girls face is period poverty. Without access to safe menstrual products, girls miss school, fall behind, and they face stigma. At the same time, we know survivors of gender-based violence and human trafficking need safe, low-pressure work opportunities to rebuild their lives. The Power Pad program therefore connects these needs. Survivors earn an income making reusable pads, while thousands of schoolgirls receive the product free of charge and so that they can stay in school with dignity and safety. Next slide, please. So our intervention funded by the Jobs Fund project is called the Sparrows Rising program. With Jobs Fund support, the Sparrows Rising project does three things. It firstly creates safe jobs for survivors who sew the pads while receiving psychosocial support. Then it brings unemployed female youth into paid internships where they handle prep work, quality check, logistics, and they also receive empowerment workshops and training certificates. And then it also distributes the pads made by the survivors directly to schools where girls also receive mental health education and GBV awareness resources. This way, the program provides dignity, income, and empowerment across different age groups of women. Next slide, please. Thus far, Sparrow Society has already produced over 100,000 pads, reaching more than 25,000 girls. 160 survivors have been empowered through pad making projects, and we've also created paid internships for 40 youth with training in areas like job readiness, entrepreneurship, and first aid. Most importantly, we see women gaining confidence, stability, and the ability to plan for a future free from their abuser. Next slide, please. Okay. So how do we do this? Why do we do this? Our theory of change is the belief is clear. If one woman and youth are given safe spaces, skills, psychosocial support, and an income opportunity, then they can become financially independent, rebuild their lives, and break free from the cycles of abuse. This would then lead to stronger families, healthier communities, and a reduction in gender-based violence. Thus, therefore creates a ripple effect. One woman's empowerment shifts an entire community. Next slide, please. So, at Sparrow Society, we don't just train people for the sake of training. We only train when we know there's an income opportunity waiting at the end. We've built strong partnerships with corporates to ensure sustainability and ongoing work. And we combine economic empowerment with trauma-informed psychosocial care. This is what makes our intervention stick. Women heal, grow, and thrive rather than just surviving. Next slide, please. We will now show you a video of one of our survivors. We hope you enjoy it.
I'm Lizzie Reporter. Sewing is in my blood, in my veins. Last year, I sat down with my family. I said to them, I want to open a business. I think my fear was that I start the business and my business crash and I will become so scared. But guess what? Something was pushing me inside that started this. I remember I said, Kate, I want to do these bags of Elizabeth Adam, but for myself. And then I remember Kate said, good girl, go for it. And I started there. I've been working for people, making money for them. But today now I'm working for myself. Money ching ching in my bank. That makes me feel great. I remember you sent Lorraine to come and teach us how to make these bags. The first time it was like traumatized. We were all traumatized because everything must be perfect. I said, guys, don't worry, we'll get it, we'll get it. Let me tell you, I love doing those bags. I make sure I'm doing the first stitching. I prepare my bags. The next day, I will do the finishing because I know the finishing is very hard. My brother's friend said, what are you doing? I'm like, no, I'm making these bags, Elizabeth Adam. What? Elizabeth Adam said, yes. And then they said to me, you are a star. I said, yes, boom, I am a star. Starting a business is not an easy thing. I just want to thank God for what He did. A black woman who lived with a disability. I am proud of myself. I did it. If I did it, why not you? I did it. The dream of this business, Liz Accessories. I want to teach young people live with a disability. I want them to take the experience from me and do the same thing that I'm doing at home.
I hope everybody enjoyed that video. I know it always makes us tear up a bit every time we watch it. Just in closing from my side, I just wanted to remind you that we believe that empowerment creates long-lasting change. Survivors are no longer defined by their trauma, but by their resilience. Girls can stay in school and reach their potential, and women can move forward from aid to trade, leading their own thriving businesses. I'll now hand back over to Zaid to continue the conversation.
Um, can we just take a moment? Can we just take a moment here, my friends, just to whew, feelings? Let's see those emotions. Let's see those emojis there, because legitimately, it's whew, okay. Shivers down my spine, fluttering in my heart. At this point, I want everyone to post one word, just one word in that chat box there, that what that video brings out for you. I'm gonna start it out. I'm gonna say, odd, just odd, because my English bundle has rung out, and at this point over here, I'm just like, oh my goodness, and this is the beauty of this, right? And okay, let's try it this way. I often say that life happens in the moments in between, that every now and again, life allows us a little interlude, a pause in the general narrative that is our lives, that lets us think or feel or experience something that could pretty much change the trajectory of everything that happens after that. Now, up to this point, you've learned a lot about the journey, some of our sisters, our mothers, our daughters, everyone in between, experience, and that obviously has the potential to break something. But what we've also just seen is that there are interventions, there are programs there, like our friends here at Sparrow Society, that actually takes that broken heart, puts it together and turns it into art. And then you see a beautiful work of art like the Ziwe there. And I think that that is something spectacular. So just one more time, let's get some of those emojis flowing over there, just as we acknowledge this interlude, this singular moment in time where all of us now get to direct our energy to realize that, hey, listen, there's hope out there. There was a quote that really stuck with me in an earlier part where Kate was saying that without support, without interventions, that this freedom remains out of reach. And I thought that was so powerful because it means that it is possible for a human to deprive another human of their freedom in some of these spaces that are supposed to be so personal, so safe in theory, and sometimes that doesn't happen. And that's a very sobering thought. But equally, what we have is people like you and people like me and everyone else here in the call who can actually change that. We can be agents of change. We can help freedom. And that thing there, the last point here on the slide that you see before you, immediate support plus a long-term culture shift, that's where we need to go, right? So if you guys are ready to go to the next part of this presentation, if you are ready to learn more, to experience this journey, to have another interlude, let's see some applause going over there. Let's get that going as I bring into the conversation once more rather, my sister from another mister. Her name is Mishlali. And I want you to give all your attention to her. I'm loving the conversation going on in the chat, and I urge you to keep that going. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go. Mishlali, over to you.
Thank you, Zaid. We definitely can be all agents of change. Greetings to you all. My name is Mihlali Manikivana, and I am the Youth Engagement Coordinator at Sparrow Society. So I'll be speaking about our youth program as well as the early intervention strategies, which is a combination of menstrual health management and GBV education. We know that empowering youth early is one of the most effective ways to actually break the cycles of poverty, GBV, and inequality. Our youth program is about building confidence, skills, and awareness so young women can step into adulthood, at least with dignity and the opportunities they would require to thrive in their future. So why the early intervention? Youth unemployment in South Africa is at an alarming rate of 64%, which makes it incredibly hard for young people to find their first job. At the same time, many of the harmful behaviors that drive GBV often begin in adolescence, so prevention and awareness at school level already is key. By combining the economic empowerment, menstrual health management, and GBV awareness in schools, we address both the immediate needs of girls and the long-term culture shift we want to see. Next slide, please. So regarding our youth internship program, we are currently terming it as the Ambassador of Excellence program. Our youth internship program gives young women between the ages of 18 and 24 their first paid work experience. The interns gain hands-on roles on our PowerPads project, which my colleague Candice will speak to you more about, which include quality checking, logistics, preparation work, while also receiving training in job readiness, computer skills, entrepreneurship, labor law, and more. At the end of the program, they leave with not only a job reference letter, but also practical skills to improve their chances in the labor market. Next slide, please. So regarding our school-based early interventions, in school, we link menstrual health management with gender-based violence education. Through the pad distributions, the learners also receive menstrual health workshops, and this is because we're trying to break the stigma and also building their confidence as girls. We play a trivia game that we have designed, and they were just trying to break the stigma through the questions asked, and also to try and gauge what they know, what they don't. We also try and raise awareness on GBV resources and give them referral information. We also try and have education sessions regarding gender equality to challenge stereotypes early. And with this dual approach, the intention is to ensure that while girls get what they need to stay in school, boys and girls alike learn about respect, equality, and consent. So, why does this matter? Period poverty is not only a health issue, it's an education and safety issue. Girls missing out of school due to lack of pads are often more vulnerable to dropping out, child marriage, and as well as exploitation. So, by giving them both the products and the education, we're not just trying to meet a physical need here, we're trying to change how they see themselves and their future. In closing, our vision is to see youth equipped, confident, and empowered, whether through an internship that gives them their first job experience or through early interventions in schools that change the narrative around menstrual health and gender. Every step we take is trying to build a stronger community and reducing vulnerabilities to gender based violence. When we empower youth, we are shifting the trajectory of the next generation. I will now hand over to my colleague Candice to tell you more.
Thank you, Michali. Good day, everyone. I'm Candice Kluter, auxiliary social worker. And within the role of working with survivors of abuse, we acknowledge the value of psychosocial support. We do know that trauma affects every part of a survivor's life, their confidence, their ability to focus, even their capacity to trust others. We have seen that it's not realistic to expect someone to immediately transition into the demands of a full-time job or a business without first addressing the emotional wounds that they carry. That is why within my role, it is so important that I provide a safe and consistent space where survivors can process their trauma, regain self belief, and set personal development goals for themselves. We do this through one on one counseling sessions, group workshops, and regular check ins with our survivors, ensuring that healing is not rushed but integrated into their empowerment journey. Next slide, please. In supporting survivors in the program, within our Power Pads program, for example, our survivors are learning sewing skills and earning an income, but equally, they are learning to believe in themselves again. I help them track their process through personal development plans, celebrating their small victories, which feels big as well, and overcome setbacks. When a survivor doubts her ability, my role is to remind her of her strengths, guide her through the challenges, and connect her to additional support where needed. As healing is not linear, we meet survivors where they are at and allow them to process through phases at their own pace, respecting their journey while also supporting the best outcomes for them as an individual and a survivor of trauma abuse. This combination of psychosocial care and income support is what makes long term empowerment possible. Next slide, please. Within community connections, pair distributions, a meaningful part of my role is accompanying our youth coordinator when she distributes pads in schools. The survivors are informed throughout the sewing process that the pads they are making will go to girls in training. In turn, when the girls receive the pads, they are told that these were handmade by survivors who had overcome incredible challenges. For our survivors, knowing exactly who will benefit from their work helps them see themselves as more than just survivors of trauma. They become change makers and role models for the next generation. For our girls, they understand who made, by understanding who made the pads, gives the gift an even greater meaning, carrying a powerful message of resilience, dignity, and woman supporting women. In closing, what makes Sparrow Society so powerfully unique is our belief that healing and empowerment goes hand in hand. My role ensures that no woman is left to carry her trauma alone, and that the income she earns doesn't just put food on her table, it builds her confidence, restores her dignity, and opens the door to a life free from abuse. I feel privileged on a daily basis to witness their transformations every single day. It is proof that when survivors are given both support and opportunity, they don't just recover, they thrive, and they inspire others to do the same. Can I just say that again? They thrive and they inspire others to do the same. Thank you.
Again, so many of these speechless moments, right? They thrive and they inspire others to do the same. Goodness. That, my friends, is, I think that is the perfect way to punctuate the conversation and the key learning over here. Now, over the next few minutes, or rather in the next few minutes, I will, of course, ask my friends on the back end to assist me in inviting questions into the conversation. But before that, I do want to have, with your permission, of course, ladies and gentlemen, have a short discussion with my friends from Sparrows. And I can't. I'm going to open it up with a general question, to the panel, and this is probably going to be a very deep and personal one. And I apologize in advance if it's too much. We don't expect you to answer, but on a day-to-day basis, knowing that you are pretty much the foundation in someone's salvation journey, moving from that space of trying to just survive to thrive. How do you, each of you, if you'd be so kind, how do you prime yourself to be in that space, to create the safe space? Can anybody assist me?
I think, Michaela speaking, I think for me, I do want Candice to answer that because she works very closely with the survivors herself. But I think what really helps us through the journey is just the team that we have, the support that we created in the office as well. It's really become a family with debriefing and just being there for the ladies, and then coming back to one another and sitting with what is going on, but also always trying to look at the positive side and always motivating one another. Candice works more closely with the survivors, and I'm sure that she will be able to tell you a bit more about how she then kind of deals with having to do this on a daily basis.
Thank you,
Candice, can I
Zain.
invite you in? Yes.
Yeah. I'm more than happy to be invited. So for myself, in working with our survivors of abuse on a daily basis, it's not easy. It helps, however, for myself personally, having been a survivor myself, you can relate to the woman, you understand them better, and also just being able to create that space in which they can feel that they can actually share and be honest, be authentic, be real, be their raw selves, and you are able to listen with no judgment, having them understand that the space is confidential yet also safe. When we say confidential, I just want to add, we do know that when they are at risk, we are liable then to report and also to assist where we can, providing them with the extra help that is needed. So on a daily, the support to the woman, for me, I feel is so vital, especially when we speak about psychosocial support. They appreciate the space in which they can just be heard, and where they are not just here to share their trauma, but they are also here to learn. They are here to develop themselves, and also they get to earn an income that even more equips themselves to get away from the abuse. So with the support of my team, definitely, and also having the space to debrief, it helps you to be more open to them and being able to give more of yourself to them as well.
That's so profound. They're so profound. It's basically a whole person intervention. It's not just about fixing one side of the equation and hoping for the best on the other, but it's actually the whole person. Is that a fair summary, Candace?
That is indeed, yes.
Okay, 100%. Ladies and gentlemen, if that resonated with you, if that's something that you think you can onboard, I invite you once again, let's see those heart emojis. It is very, very difficult, and I'm sure many of you know, when you are sharing a part of your soul, as these wonderful, wonderful women are doing so today, it's very, very difficult to do so into the vacuum that is your that tiny little hole over there where the camera is. So, of course, all the engagements do definitely help. Now, Bronwyn raises an interesting point over here, which I think is a nice segue for discussion over here. And obviously, Sparrow Society is a non-profit, and you obviously have been able to garner support just through your mission, through the work that you do, garner the support of organizations, including the Jobs Fund, to support elements of your mission. But where are we now? Where to from here? Because given the global economic climate that we're sitting with, it can't be easy to continue doing the magic that you currently do. So do you have any thoughts you'd like to share on that, perhaps Kate and the team?
Yes, I'll take that one. So I think you're right. You're right. The current climate and tariffs have definitely hit us, which is difficult. But we do have quite a few local companies as well that we work with. We also have been building our relationship with our global partners over the course of 6-7 years. So because of that relationship, it does help, and they're more willing to work with us to kind of get around those issues. I will say, so at the very beginning, I explained we started off as more of just job creation, skills development. At that time, we weren't dependent on outside funding at all. We were fully 100% self-sustainable through the sale of bags. It was only when we started going more into needing to add this additional psychosocial support, and again, as Candace mentioned, when working with survivors so soon after trauma, we can't expect them to go from that to now all of a sudden working at the capacity to be able to earn enough to sustain herself. And that is why the programs like Jobs Fund are so important. It allows us to do a bridging program, but that requires funding. So the women in that kind of bridging process between kind of immediately coming out of an unsafe situation before she is kind of fully able to reintegrate, it requires additional funding, because that all the additional psychosocial support and allowing her time and allowing her to be self-paced, that requires funding, unfortunately. So that part we haven't quite figured out how to make self-sustainable, but that is why the Jobs Fund thing is so important, because it is allowing her, she's not trapped in that charity part for too long, but it allows her the space and time to get herself to that point, because she has funding, she has free access to the psychosocial support she needs, she has free access to a safe space where she can come and be with other women going through it as well, while she gets out, while she rebuilds her life. And then the goal is, by the end of that, after working through her personal development plan with Candace and our team, that at the end of that, she's able to then join our wider SOBOS network, which then she is self-sustainable. She has gone, it's that aid to trade. So taking her from that place of charity into that place of sustainability. But that's kind of on a sustainability level and organizational level. Trying to create pathways to that is really important. So for us, if we lose funding, it doesn't mean we have to stop our program, which is great, because we still have this whole network of SOBOSes, and the selling of bags keeps that sustainable. And so we're able to still provide, it's still a network of women, it's still a network of women getting business support. They're still able to access jobs. We're still able to do additional trainings without the need for additional funding. So I think creating strategies in your nonprofit, that it's diversifying what you do basically, and diversifying your funding streams allows for you to do that. I hope that answered the question.
Actually, this actually gives me another idea for a whole new webinar that we can do around this, and that allows us to have another whole conversation. But there are a couple of key takeaways over there. So, of course, this is a learning session that is powered by the Jobs Fund. And as you know, I started my part of this year by saying to you that what the Jobs Fund does is that we pilot, we test, and we scale innovative models that would ultimately lead to sustainable job creation. And there you have it, right? From the the proverbial sparrow's mouth, as it were, a sweet song of success, my friends. So I want to share something with you, and I was very, very privileged to have been a part of the appraisal team when we were onboarding projects. And for those of you who don't know, I'm going to remind you the Jobs Fund operates with what we call challenge fund principles, and every so often we open up what is called a funding round, and we invite the absolute best of the best to come through, make a pitch, we take them through a fairly detailed due diligence process. And ultimately, what that does is it helps us to find the best interventions to support. Now, of course, Kate has spoken to you about when you are a nonprofit, there are certain things that you can do to prime yourself for success. And that's really what the Jobs Fund does as well. It's about creating a developmental space now for interventions like this, such that they can go further on their path to sustainability. You recall, I told you the Jobs Fund is not a mass employment scheme. What it is, though, is it is an organization that powers targeted interventions, and that's what this is all about. Now, here's a challenge to the audience, just putting it out there. Remember, I was telling you about how life every so often gives us interludes, and it has these so-called moments in between that truly change something here. Well, what's amazing is that you are a part of a bigger ecosystem. Each and every one of you knows at least one person who may be connected to the next person, and that person may be, or that organization may be the catalyst that will help us do the last part of the Jobs Fund intervention, which is scaling. So here's what I invite you to do. I invite you, when this is done, to actually go and follow the Jobs Fund on our socials, look at all the other things we've done, and see, okay, look, who can you tell about the work that we do? Because maybe the next project we power will be something amazing. We're currently in the midst of appraising new projects, and I'm hoping we'll be able to do one very, very soon after this. That exciting things happening in our country. But beyond that, our network over here, our friends from Sparrow Society, you will note that there is a call. While they do have their proverbial sparrows in a row, did you see what I did there? That is my one lame joke I'm allowed in a day, so I've used up my bundle now. But what I invite you each to do is to actually take this message out there. That video you saw earlier, that link has been made available in the chat, and I urge you to actually share that story far and wide. And who knows, the next life you change could be one that's a little closer to home than you'd expect, and that's what makes it all the more important, right? A reminder again, my friends, that the presentation and recording will be made available afterwards. We've shared the link for you over there. Now we have come to that very, very exciting part of the conversation where we get to ask questions. Now, a few house rules on this, right? Of course, we don't have much time, and I want to maximize the time that we have here. So what I would need you to do is in 3 seconds or less, introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and straight to the question. There's no need to contextualize. Our speakers will ask you for more detail if necessary, but let's get straight to the question so we can do that. Another house rule over here, if I may, and I apologize in advance, I do not want, or I would prefer if we didn't go through the space of people making pitches for other programs or other initiatives. This here is a learning and a sharing session, so we want to get maximum benefit out of that. If you agree with these house rules, and if we can go there, can you get some thumbs up going over there? Let's hold each other accountable. Let's get the thumbs up going on over there. Very, very excited. Okay, Kate even gave me a high five, so thank you, Kate. I will take that. Right. So the best part about being a host of this platforms like this and these learning sessions is that you get to ask intelligent questions that came in the chat and pretend that they are your own. So I'm going to do that right now, but I will give credit. There's a gentleman, his name is Alvis, and in the chat he posted something that I'm very, very excited about, very, very interested in, because I have a legal background. And he asked a question about what policy gaps, if any, exist that may hinder women's access to market, to hinder women's access to participate competitively in the space. Is that something you guys can help me with?
Yes, I'm going to take a crack at that one.
Sure.
There's a few different things. One of the first things that came to mind, that's just because I have the economic side on my mind, is access to credit. So because I mentioned previously, if a partner has kind of run up bad credit in her name, it's impossible for her to get a loan. So if she's trying to get a loan to get out or start a business or provide her own housing, she's going to be unable to do so. And creditors aren't going to care kind of why her credit is bad. They're not going to care if she says it wasn't me, it was my partner, all of those things. Another thing is on the kind of in the workplace, we have discriminatory hiring and also things on the labor law side. So one of the things with labor law in South Africa, we have a very robust labor law system that protects a lot of people, but it is very strict. So everyone has to follow the same rules. So there's very few allowances for if a woman is undergoing such trauma and she's late or she breaks down in the middle of the workplace because something has triggered her. It's those kinds of things that make it hard for her to get a job and keep a job, both getting it, but also once she's in it, if she is triggered. A lot of places aren't well equipped to handle that. And then they have to follow their disciplinary code. And this is where it starts to break down, is because they can't give her special treatment and not another one, or it causes labor law issues. So there's that one. Another one we've seen a lot is on immigration. So this is a really tricky one because our immigration policies are there for a very good reason. But I will say, for a lot of women who are coming who are not South African citizens, they are at significant risk because they can't get a legal job. So then they're at more risk of vulnerability and exploitation. If she's trying to get out, she is very much trapped. I know from my own experience, I'm sure all of you have picked up by now, I'm not South African. I have been here for 20 years, so I am a permanent resident. But before that, and the reason it was so hard for me to leave is because before I became a permanent resident, and everything was in my ex-husband's name. Everything, our house, the car that I was paying for, everything was in his name. I had zero credit. When I tried to start a business, I basically didn't exist in the system and no one knew what to do with that. Even going to home affairs, it was very, very difficult to do anything. And that kind of vulnerability really traps a lot of women across all demographics. So, and that has made it hard as well for a lot of the women who come to us do not have residency. They don't have work permits, and our hands are tied quite a bit with what services we're able to provide for them. And that's really unfortunate because they are really the most vulnerable within the group that we work with. And then with regards to limited access legally in kind of just reporting and protection orders, as I mentioned, those things are there to help protect her, but really kind of protection orders are only as strong as they are enforced. And again, if he's still controlling money, still controlling kids and childcare, then there's very little there. And that's where the kind of external services and support become really important. There's a few more things I can say, but I tried to hit the top level ones that I could think of.
And I'm grateful for that, Kate. And of course, to everyone joining us in the audience, if you would like to engage some more, we will, of course, have the details for our friends at Sparrow Society where you can reach out. And who knows, maybe there's some level of support that you yourself, based on your network and lived experience, can actually add into that. Now, of course, my friends, if you have something you'd like to contribute to the conversation, perhaps a question, it will assist me if you would raise your hand by using the little button there at the top of your screen, and I will recognize you, and then we can move forward with that. There are two questions that came up in the chat though that really hit me hard. And Kate, I think that your last point there about I'm trying to be delicate and I'm trying to be sensitive, but at the same time, you all have been so brave in sharing your stories. So the only thing I can do is ask earnestly from the perspective of trying to learn and hopefully become slightly better thereafter. So I apologize in advance, but you alluded to your lived experience and your journey and everything you've gone on to do since then, impacting all of these lives through your mission and your work. The one you spoke about, on that road there, the obstacles and the barriers you experience, and you touched on a couple of them. Cynthia had asked, what are some of the most overlooked barriers that women face when trying to start a business specifically? So we've covered just, in general, going from surviving to trying to thrive now, on a personal level. But when it comes to actually bringing a business into the world, can you and your team perhaps address us on that?
Yeah, I'll start, and then anyone else can take over from me. So one of the most obvious barriers is the gender discrimination. So being a woman business owner, people tend to not take you as seriously. I remember when I first started and I would go to networking events, I would kind of say, "Hi, I'm Kate. I work for Sparrow Society." I wouldn't say I'm the founder. I wouldn't say I'm the director. I think I only recently started saying that in the last 2 years, because of that fear of, if they look at me and see that I am the owner, they're not going to take my business seriously. And I think that is, I mean, it's sad, but it's also reality. It is true. So people tend to not take women as seriously. People tend to, if it's her own business, they tend to devalue her work. So they are less willing to pay a higher price to her. Whereas if a man would come with the same product at the same price, they wouldn't argue with it, but they feel like they can kind of argue and negotiate with a woman. Similarly, in negotiations, working with suppliers, they tend to not take me as seriously. And I think this is true for women across the board, whether they own the business or they work in the business. That gender discrimination is very much a reality. Do you guys want to add in anything else?
And then I think another thing is just that balance that women have to kind of create between being a mother and owning a business. The hours that needs to be put in, but still having to kind of to society fulfill the role of being a mother, make sure everything is sorted within the household, but also then go out and with our ladies being working from home, it kind of helps that balance. Being able to kind of shift your time to do both. But I think that when they are more in corporate spaces, it makes it a bit more difficult. And I think that is why our model works really well, because ladies are able to do both, make an income or start a business from home and still do everything that they want to do for their children, for themselves.
That's just spectacular. That's just spectacular. Okay, Candace, were you gonna come in there? I thought I heard you.
No,
No.
I'm sorry.
Okay, okay, no, that's okay, that's okay. But if I can just punctuate that, I think that I must confess that's something I had not thought about, and it's actually a lived reality. I'm very blessed and fortunate to have amazing women in my life that surround me, and I have never thought of it from that perspective. And I think that this is perhaps a challenge to all the men out there and everyone who identifies as such. That listen, we actually do have a responsibility to speak up. Here at the Jobs Fund, we have a couple of core values, and one of them is actually to speak up, raise your hand, and escalate. And I think that, my friends, is a call to each and every one of you, is that if you see something, say something. Because in as much as today's conversation is very much about how do we take these amazing souls from a space of just surviving over to thriving, I think that that's one part of the ecosystem. But then there's another part of it below that. As we know, the DDG spoke about this when she opened us up this morning, that the scourge of GBV is very prevalent, in South Africa. And if we see something, we must say something. Now, on the topic of seeing something and saying something, I do want to shift our conversation to the corporates. Now, we are very fortunate that in our network at the Jobs Fund, we have some amazing partners, and by extension, some of you are from potential partners, would be partners. And I guess the bigger conversation that needs to be had, and this comes from Sandile in the chat, is that what can governments and corporates do to make programs like this replicable and scalable? Because with the Jobs Fund, we've already piloted, we tested. Now we need to start thinking about scaling. So, ladies, you've alluded to it. There are some policy reforms that are necessary, but beyond that, can you give us some insight on that, please?
Oh, sorry. So this is from Sunday. So what I did put in the chat is that We have two parts. We have Sparrow Collective, that is the for-profit, and then we have the Sparrow Society, which is the non-profit. And so how corporates have worked with us is that they give us their big orders. So we work with like Elizabeth Arden, and we make cosmetic bags for their gift with purchase. And so that is how we incorporate. So once ladies have graduated from our Power Pads project, they move over to our for-profit where they then make an income from those gigs. So we get orders of over 300,000 bags for these corporates. And ladies then make that income there, and that is how we sustain it. And then um, profits made on the for-profit will then be fed into the non-profit. And so we've also worked with Western Cape government, and we've made some of their banners into bags and things like that. And so that is how government has also come on board to help us also sustain the non-profit. Also, obviously, CSI from different corporates can also really be very helpful. But basically, that is how we've kind of seen that they can assist us.
Can you just assist me, and you forgive my ignorance, but what does CSI, just for those of us who don't know, CSI means?
Corporate social investment.
Oh, okay, 100%, 100%. Thank you. That's an important one. Can I just take a moment to acknowledge, and guys, when you hear this, if this resonates with you, whatever emoji comes up, I want you to throw it out there. Can I just say, ladies, that I am absolutely floored and awed by the fact that, when given a platform to say, okay, listen, what can people do to help? You didn't ask for a hand out. What you did was you told them how they can give you a hand up. In other words, you didn't say, no, give us more money. What you said was, listen, partner with us, right? Partner with us. This is how we can do it. And what we can do is we can actually help our beneficiaries on this journey, to thriving. And I'm seeing the emojis coming there. I'm seeing the hearts. I'm seeing the applause. And I want to just say, like, 2 thumbs up. That is such a unique way of thinking about it. And I love Sparrow Society for doing that. And seeing as you're too polite to do it, I'm going to do it for you. Guys, if you ever have the opportunity, go and visit them in Cape Town, because I went, they have a factory store there, and I bought so many bags, like so many bags. I gave my mother, I gave my wife, I gave my wife again because I didn't do some stuff I was supposed to do at home. I gave absolutely everybody I know. And now, because of Sparrow Society, everyone thinks that I'm thoughtful, and I'm working on that. I will get better. But the best part about it is learning the story behind it. What I feel in some small way is that, you know what, I am actually starting to take the step towards making positive, sustainable change. And all of us can do that. All of us can do it. It starts with you. Now, we do have time for a few more questions, but there's a question that we have for all of you, your feedback. So you would have noticed that roughly 11:07, my colleague Karen actually shared a link to a survey. It's a very, very short survey. It will take you less than 2 minutes. And what that will do is it will help us to actually figure out how do we do what we do better, and what do we keep, what do we change, because ultimately the Jobs Fund is an organization about service. That's what we do. So what we want to do is we want to figure out how can we be of better service, not just to this country as a whole, but to each and every one of you who has come on the journey with us, so we can continue on our mission of imparting and sharing the knowledge that we amass through our projects and our programs. Okay, so please make sure you do that before you leave for today. Now, Bronwyn has, I don't see any hands, so I'm just going to pull a question that just came to my eye now from Bronwyn again. And Bronwyn asks, what is the time frame typically given for capacity building with helping her journey from start until she's eventually on her 2 feet? Now, I want to preface this and just for context with Bronwyn, right? So like I said to you, the Jobs Fund is all about transparency and accountability. And because now we manage public funds in our projects, what we do is we have a rigorous monitoring and evaluation process and system, right? So in other words, we set certain targets for our partners, and our partners are therefore required to monitor and support those beneficiaries on their journey to sustainability. So with that context sitting in space, I'm going to turn it over to Kate and the team just to give you a little bit more context on how that works in practice. Ladies?
Yes, so I think you touched on a little bit there. As we mentioned, it is a self-paced program. So every woman kind of comes in with her own level of trauma and her own kind of capacity in that given moment. Some women are able to come in and within a month are able to get to the point where she's making 10,000 Rand a month, and that's amazing. But some women, it takes 12 months. So there's really no time frame really that we set for them. It's really is about kind of where she's at in her journey, how long it takes her to work through that.
I see that right there. That's what we call an interlude. You will be in the middle of changing the world, and something will tell you that the requested person you're trying to contact is unavailable. Please try again later. But what we have to do then in those moments is that we really dig deep, we mute the noise, and then we get right back into it. So, Kate, you were saying?
Hi. Okay, let me try that again.
There we go.
Okay. So it is a self-paced program. Unfortunately, when we're trying to explain this and with funding, sometimes there are time limits set. So it's like, okay, well, it's the end of 6 months. Everyone needs to be kind of at this 10,000 Rand mark. And as much as we try for that, at no point are we going to push her more than we think she is capable of in that given moment. And that does present a challenge, but we always put the survivor first, and pushing her past, I alluded to this at the beginning and Candace spoke to it a little bit with her personal development plans. It's really, really important. Anyone working in this work, you cannot push a survivor more than she is able to in that moment, or you will set her back hugely. It won't just be for that same amount of time. It will set her back. It knocks her confidence. Small things knock confidence of women when they're at the very beginning of this journey. So it's really important that it is self-paced. So she will work with our team of social workers to figure out, okay, what can I do this week? And we even found that sometimes setting a goal for the week is too much. So we break it down into a daily goal. Okay, can you do 5 bags today? And she's like, yes, okay, I think I can do 5 bags. And so at the end of that day, if she's done the 5 bags, we celebrate with her. If she hasn't finished them, then the social worker is like, okay, what else do we need to do? We can set her up with some counseling, or maybe we need to work on something else. Maybe there's something at home that she needs to deal with first to kind of free up her mind and her body to be able to focus on work. It's those kinds of things. So most women kind of fall in, it's a very broad spectrum, but from 3 to 12 months, kind of 6 months is often the sweet spot. Maybe Candace can attest to this a little bit more, but that's why we've set up the program to be self-paced, is because we do know that everyone goes through the process in their own time, and it takes there's no telling. So someone can be fine for a week, and then all of a sudden something happens and she's back at square one. So that self-paced part is crucial.
I love that. I love that, Candace. So are you going to come in?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you clearly.
Okay, cool. Just to add, I just want to say that within the program, what is so amazing, like I just mentioned, we don't push past their capacity or what they can handle in the moment, in that day, in that week. So what the program also allows is that we've got an array of external resources that we would have come in, and they would do programs with our survivors as well. And I would say from my experience, it also builds a lot of the confidence of the ladies, especially when we are addressing topics that caters to them personally. So within our personal development plan that we journey with the ladies, we do have a section where we speak into financial management. And this also teaches these ladies on how to work with the monies that they are now going to be earning. And you can literally see how it boosts their confidence to know that, okay, so this is how I can use this and this is what I can do with it. And also when we're speaking into topics such as substance abuse, especially with where the abuse has stemmed from. So now they also know that what they can do, how we can link them to resources. So within the program, we also map resources. Sometimes the ladies doesn't know necessarily who is within their communities of where they stay. And hence the reason with the program, it then gives them that knowledge on where can they access the help that they need. And when they know that, you can see how much it changes for them, because now I know I can go to this police station, I know I can go to that shelter, I know I can go to that place of help for rehabilitation for my child or whoever may need the help. I know that this is where I can go when I'm needing that specific help, sorry. And that in itself, like I just mentioned earlier, builds the confidence for this lady to come in the next day and be able to do more. She can literally come up to me and say, like, I can do more. I will try to push for another 10. And when I see that there's a bit of a regress where they are doing less, I would come in and we can speak about it, what's happening for you, is things okay at home, what's happening with you personally. And they are allowed to share, and we cater to that. And when we can identify with the problem, we see as to how we can help, and then try again for a bag or more the next day. And we see how we then get to the end of that week. And they are always more than welcome to come back and say that, you know what, I feel that I cannot do that. Can we do it a bit less? And we cater to that as well. And when they can go up, we cater to that as well. So it's all about them and where they are at and how they can pace with themselves and for themselves.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. So profound, so profound. Now, my friends, I've received an alert that we have roughly about 5 minutes left in our session. I'm hoping we don't get cut off, but as I hand over to the DDG to take us home, there are 3 things I want to share with you. The first thing is a reminder that you need to complete that survey for us. It's definitely going to help us to do this better the next time. The second thing I'm going to remind you about is the fact that you can be an agent of change, be a part of the story, and let's make South Africa better again. And the third thing I want you to do is probably the most important for me is let's send some love, let's send some emojis, let's send some encouraging words of there in that comment section over there for firstly our speakers today, for the people they're supporting, and of course the mother of the fund. Her name is Najwa Ali Idris. She is the one that pushes us, she is the one that motivates us, and every once and again she shires us as well, but in a loving and nurturing way, to make sure that what we can do is we can bring hope back to South Africa. It has been my privilege and pleasure to share this platform with you, ladies and gentlemen. Over to the head of the head of the Jobs Fund, Najwa Ali Idris, the Deputy Director General for Employment Facilitation, the head of the Jobs Fund. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Zaid. Thank you so much for holding the space so well. And thank you to Michaela and Kate, Mshlali and Candace for your courage, for your resilience, and for your absolute commitment to helping others. Thank you to our audience. Thank you for the questions that you've posted. What we've heard today is both sobering and also inspiring. The statistics on gender-based violence in our country is a disgrace. But the stories of resilience and innovation and empowerment shared today remind us that change is not only possible, it is already happening. Through the work of Sparrow Society and other partners, we see how economic empowerment can be a powerful antidote to abuse. When women are given the tools to earn, to heal, and to lead, they don't just transform their own lives, but they uplift families, strengthen communities, and shift societal norms. As the Jobs Fund, we are proud to support initiatives that go beyond job creation, that build dignity, confidence, and long-term sustainability. We believe in co-creating solutions that are trauma-informed, community-rooted, and driven by the lived experiences of those we serve. Let us continue to invest in models that work. Let us continue to listen, to learn, and to collaborate. And most importantly, let us continue to center women's voices in the fight against gender-based violence and economic exclusion. Thank you again to all the speakers, our partners, and to everyone who made today's webinar possible. We look forward to continuing our journey with you. Thank you.